Today I'd like to discuss the concept of keeping a sustained harvest from your orchard. Uh, Eating locally has become quite a thing these days. Everybody wants to have local grown food, and most people who have orchards and gardens, their attempt would be to try to keep a continuous harvest of food running along for the kitchen and the table, so that we don't have big gaps in what we grow. We do this by looking at the seasonality of the varieties of stuff that we're raising. Apples, for instance, come early, mid-season, late, and so on. Also, an important issue, and if you live where subtropicals can be grown, like citrus, for instance, avocados, in general, most subtropicals tend to be short day bearers. In other words, they'll bear their crops during the winter months. Most of the temperate plants, like peaches, apples, nectarines, pears, and so on, tend to bear their crops during the longer days of the year. So they're kind of more summer bearing. So that's one way we can divide up what we plant. I ordinarily don't plant very many orange varieties that overlap with my summer apples, for instance, because I have so many apples to eat. I really don't want citrus at that time. Taking all this into consideration, I generally tend to feed on avocados and citrus throughout most of the winter months here in the Bay Area, California, and then I feed on cherries, berries, peaches, plums, apples, nectarines, pears, and persimmons, and so on during the longer, warmer days of the year. Some things store well, so for instance a Granny Smith apple. Good storage item. You can put those up and keep them for 4 to 6 months even if you have proper conditions. So that's a real nice thing to have tucked away, so if you kind of run into a space between crops, you can always go into the stored food. A lot of pear varieties also store really well. I have a camise tree here, and I'll put those pears up in the refrigerator during October, selecting only perfect fruit, nothing with any blemishes and so on. Handle them very carefully. I wrap them up into a plastic sack that's partially ventilated, put them in the back of the vegetable crisper, and we'll usually have camise pears available from October to as late as April by that technique. And so they kind of overlap things for us then. The same goes with a lot of citrus varieties, like Eureka lemons, for instance, hang in the tree for long periods of time. The Ngami kumquat, also another fruit that will hang in a plant long after it's ripe. Valencia orange, also famous for hanging in the tree. These are important features when planting the orchard. You really want to try to be able to make use of everything that you've put out there and try to get it so it's coming in steps and stages. So starting with spring, usually in my garden one of the earliest crops available as a fruit is the blueberry. It's really quite early here in this area. They'll begin blooming January and February, and most of them finished by the time we get to the 4th of July as far as the fruiting is concerned. Raspberries, also another crop that I like to have right after the blueberries. They take in the early part of spring. They also take in the late part of summer because mine are everbearers. My thornless blackberries, this is Triple Crown variety, come in right after the first crop of the raspberries. So they sort of fill in a hole right there. Just about the time that the first apple varieties like Beverly Hills will start to come right. Cherries are another one of those early season, late spring to early summer crops. Come right around the same time as most of the berries do. This is a Stella. It's a black sweet cherry. And I'm usually picking this somewhere from late June to very early July. Apples are one of my favorite fruits. They come in all different types, flavors, colors, growth habits, and definitely seasonalities. Right here in front of us is one of the favorite old English apples. This is Cox Orange Pippin. Cox Orange Pippin is a late apple. It hangs in the tree really well. It also stores well, so it makes a great complement in my kitchen because we can put them up and they'll hold over the winter time. If I get tired of eating navel oranges, I can always go to eating some Cox Orange Pippins. Same with Fuji, another really good late apple. It bears heavily here in this area, very abundant. It's a great fruit. It's extremely sweet. The latest apple of the year in my garden is the Granny Smith. If I didn't take this one down by Thanksgiving, it would actually hang in the tree, still good, all the way to Christmas. And it'll store for a good 4 to 6 months in cold storage, too. So that's a real good fruit to have. These are Fuyu persimmons, and around here they definitely speak for late fall. The trees have a beautiful fall color. They're turning right now. They're wonderful pumpkin orange, and they're just perfectly delicious. Just before Thanksgiving, and if you can keep the birds out all the way towards Christmas. Many pear varieties are very late season too. Here's the last camise hanging in my tree that I'd neglected to pick. This is November. It's still perfectly good at this time of the year. The pomegranate is also a really good late season crop. They're usually taken down in November here in the Bay Area. White sapote is another good choice. These are subtropicals, and so we're moving away from temperate fruit. Trees native to Guatemala, Mexico, and Central America. They grow very well here in coastal California. Bear huge quantities of fruit twice a year. Right now we're looking at the crop that'll come ripe during the month of February. Nothing like avocados. I could almost live on these. Give me some tortillas, some beans and rice, and I'm a happy man. The avocados come in various seasonalities, but most types tend to bear from fall going through the winter to early spring. This one right here is bacon. It'll usually come on during the month of January and extend into April for us. Top subtropical in my garden is citrus. The citrus will carry you all the way through the winter and then even back around again into the summer, depending on the varieties you're growing. Right here is Bear's lime. Life is just not the same without limes. We must have limes. Bears, like lemons, will bear twice a year. It's right now starting to ripen up its late fall crop. There'll be another crop again later for early summer. The limes will drop their fruit in between. They don't hold in the tree. Lemons, on the other hand, will hold their fruit between the crops. This is Eureka lemon. It's a classic lemon variety. It, like the lime, has 2 crops a year, but it holds them between the crops, and oftentimes these fruit will be good for almost a year after they actually turn yellow. This is the variegated pink Eureka. It has stripes in the foliage, pink stripes on the fruit, and has a pink flesh, almost like a pink grapefruit. It's a novelty. It's interesting. Makes pink lemonade, folks. Here's a little Japanese mandarin called Kino. It has a delicious flavor. Incredible perfume. And unlike most mandarins, this one will actually hang the fruits in the tree for months after they've turned orange. I can pick these both in winter and in summer. It's a pretty amazing little plant. This tree is the Owari Satsuma mandarin. It's one of my favorites. It's very high yielding. The fruit peels so easily. We call it a zipper skin. It has no seeds in it. It's nice and sweet, only limited acidity, and it's really early. This is just about Thanksgiving here, and this tree is now starting to get some color to the fruit. The first ones will come down ready to eat about Christmas. Pickable season usually manages to extend itself somewhere into March. And just about that time, its buddy next door here, the Mineola Tangelo, which is currently pretty small and still pretty green, will start to ripen up. And this fruit is really good when we start to head in towards April. This Washington Navel Orange takes the place of my apple crops during the winter time. It has just a huge yield. It's a very big tree, and we can manage to feed on this plant probably about as early as February, and from there the fruit will hang in good condition all the way into April, with a few off-season fruit coming during the summer months. Those are actually some of the best we ever get down, are during July and August. They're kind of sparse though. It's the wintertime crop in this tree that's really large. And if I didn't have any other plants in my yard that fed me, this one would just about take care of the entire winter. My pawpaw tree is bare now in November, but it wasn't long ago
and it was bearing just piles and piles of sweet potato-sized fruits hanging everywhere. During the summer months and the early fall, if you get tired of all those crunchy apples and pears and such, you might want to consider something good and squishy, like a nice, soft, sweet pawpaw.
So there was a brief look at some of the seasonality we have here in our garden in Fremont, California. Wherever you live, there's got to be a combination of fruit that when you plant it will give you the longest possible harvest with the least gaps between. I'd say that's one of the goals of orchard planting. As you plant, pay attention not only to what it is you like to eat, but when it comes into season. The worst thing in the world is to have all your fruit landing on the same week, somewhere during the middle of summer. Take a look at your tastes, take a look at your landscape, and see what you can do about trying to orchestrate your varieties of fruit so that they come at separate times, so you're able to actually try to deal with each and every one of them and make use of them in your diet. You'll be glad you did, and it'll save on your grocery bill. It'll also allow you to eat locally and gain the health benefits of being able to eat indigenous food from your area year-round. Happy gardening. Thanks.